Also remember, speakers from the current session, keep your cameras on from the first, all the opening remarks. Good afternoon, good evening, even late evening for some, good morning for others. We are so pleased to welcome you to the opening of this very important conference that has been in the making for months under the theme of No Peace Without Women. What are women bringing to peace processes, conflict prevention, and human security? My name is Carolyn Handschin, based in Geneva. I am the president of the Women's Federation for World Peace Europe, coordinator for the development of this International Association of First Ladies for World Peace in Europe and Middle East, and I'm the president of the NGO Committee on the Status of Women. I would have to begin first with a few practical points so everyone is well installed. You will see at the bottom of your screen there are several icons. One is Q&A, questions and answers. One is the chat box, and one is for interpretation. So we have interpretation into 7 languages. It's better, instead of clicking for original, it's better that you just right away click whatever language you would like to listen in on, which you can change as you go. Also, chat box is for chatting among yourselves related to our event, hopefully. And also the bios will be put in the chat as the speakers begin their presentations. Question and answers will be open throughout the event. You can put in your questions and they will be relayed to the speakers or the session facilitator. I am so happy to open this important and I believe very relevant event and series of roundtable discussions. I have to begin by saying thank you to our organizing team, Women's Federation for World Peace in Europe and Middle East, the International Association of First Ladies for Peace, which is part of the Universal Peace Federation, the Renee Moawad Foundation, and Her Excellency Madam Nayla Moawad is actually co-host with Women's Federation for this event. We also want to thank the supporting organizations, UN Women, especially UN Women Office in Geneva, the NGO Committee on the Status of Women in Geneva, and Seroptimist International. So thank you to everyone for your support. The very early preparations for this event began soon after the invasion of Ukraine, gathering first ladies from Lebanon, Cyprus, and Albania, as well as our UNECE head, who is here present, also Madam Sinita Messi from Albania, former Deputy Prime Minister, also Her Excellency Anneli Jäätteenmäki from Finland, also former Prime Minister in Finland, as well as our vast network of Women's Federation leaders throughout the region. We got together and we all shared a common indignation and a common thought or determination. Can we as women not put our best minds, our hearts, and our experience together to set a new pattern of righting injustices and solving disagreements without perpetrating further injustice, further violence and enmity, and in this case, actually leading to war again? Could we not decide together that unabated violent confrontation and war is not an inevitable outcome of deteriorating circumstances among humans? The damage, destruction, death, generations of trauma on both sides or all sides of the conflict warrant us trying harder. Civil society-led campaigns have convinced people that landmines were not an admissible and permanent weapon of war, that cigarette smoking in public places was not the right of the individual. UNESCO's Culture of Peace program, dear Ingeborg Breines, so grateful to have you here, led a global campaign to tap into that mindset with incredible success. The SDGs support the same goal from another side, and actually all of us here are working from different angles on this topic. So through our prominent speakers today from the United Nations, European regional institutions, national governments, educators, academia, private sector, and NGOs, we will learn what difference women are already making in preventive diplomacy, in neutralizing triggers that lead to violent conflict, and in how we could work more effectively and in greater solidarity, drawing on previous successes. A good portion of my own personal confidence for this topic comes from my experience in preventive diplomacy and neutralizing triggers that lead to heightened tensions as mother of a large family. I think many of you might know what I'm talking about. But beyond skills, probably the success here lies in the commitment, the love, belief that these perpetrators, my children in this case, are capable of much better. Herein lies the importance of, I think, this partnership between civil society, people, individuals, families, communities, and international institutions. So this theme, No Peace Without Women, is a slogan that we hope to continue with, and from my view has two meanings. One is a call to empower women and girls with tools and opportunities to be leaders and contributors in flourishing communities, but also a call to women to unite to solve the current global disorder, the silent acceptance of a confusion of priorities. With that in mind, our last speaker today will present a proposal for a project, a commitment to healing and sustainable development in Ukraine, a small seed to keep up our momentum together, hopefully, for the larger goal. So with a remarkable group of speakers who work on and who live these issues daily, women and men who are peacemakers in their personal lives, I will introduce our upcoming speakers. I also have to begin by passing on a short message from Mrs. Myrid Corrigan-Maguire. I know some of you know her. She was a Nobel laureate from Ireland who is really an icon for this message of no more war. She could not be here today, but she recognized the importance of this theme and of this meeting and sends her best wishes for productive discussions and outcomes of this. Our first speaker, Ms. Nayla Moawad, former First Lady of Lebanon, who is actually, as I said, co-host of this event and has been working really closely with us in developing this First Ladies initiative. She was First Lady in Lebanon until her husband, Rene, was tragically assassinated, I think, as you know. She was also Minister of Social Development, Member of Parliament. She is to this day continuing her activism as a member of civil society, and her concern for peace and development in Lebanon and elsewhere is renowned. Very unfortunately, as of yesterday, she took sick and she is not able to be with us in person. She was so disappointed because she has been with us through all this process of preparing for this event. But she did send us a short message, which I would like to read to you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be a part of this important initiative to promote the culture of peace through these kinds of webinars and actions. And I wish to congratulate the Women's Federation for World Peace in Europe, all the associated NGOs and partners for their continued efforts to promote the culture of peace. As we have seen through the history up to the present time, so many wars have erupted around the world, with one recent example, the war in Ukraine. Hence, I believe that the role of women is very crucial in promoting peace. In general, women are more compassionate, especially as mothers, and the women, due to their sensitive nature, are more likely to collaborate and to listen to one another. They play the key role in creating harmonious families and raising their children. This is why it is important to have women leaders working side by side next to men in order to build peaceful and prosperous society. This kind of webinar and online gathering encourages women throughout the world to become more proactive in creating culture of peace in their society and nation. May this conference today be a source of great inspiration for all participants. Thank you. And I hope if you are watching today, Mrs. Moawad, we send our best wishes for quick recovery and our love to you. Also, we have someone listening in who could not participate with us. She is the former First Lady of Belarus, Professor Irina Shushkevich, who I hope will join us next time, and I hope even follow-up events we might be able to have in person and not just virtually. Our next speaker I would like to introduce is Dr. Julia Moon. She is the president of the Women's Federation for World Peace since 2019. Since 1996, she has been the Director General of the Universal Ballet. She is a former prima ballerina. She is Vice Chair chairwoman of the Sunhawk Educational Foundation, who I know through my experience brings her skills and her grace as an administrator, choreographer, to guide the Women's Federation development throughout the world. So Dr. Julia Moon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Carolyn, for your wonderful opening remarks and for your gracious introduction. Dear respected leaders, colleagues, and friends, it is truly my great honor to greet this gathering of esteemed women leaders, including First Ladies of Nations, United Nations, government and civil society leaders, and others at this 22nd Annual Leadership Conference of the Women's Federation for World Peace of Europe. As Carolyn mentioned, many dedicated volunteers have worked very hard to make this gathering happen, and I salute and thank you all. I also want to thank the speakers who will be offering fresh insights and perspectives during each panel discussion. We will hear proposals for more effective partnerships between governments and the private sector. To all of our distinguished speakers, thank you for being with us today. This is indeed a time of great challenge. It seems that there has never been a time when the voices of women were more desperately needed in our world as wives, mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends. The shocking outbreak of war in Ukraine has devastated many lives and has shaken confidence that sustainable peace is even possible in our world. However, there is a reason to hope. Just this past week, we witnessed the world's response to the recent passing of Queen Elizabeth II. This is a moving example of how the power of one woman was able to touch the hearts of so many people beyond ideology or political leanings. Queen Elizabeth made a vow to God and her people when assuming the monarchy in 1952, and she remained faithful to that vow in spite of tremendous challenges. We can see that the power for change in society is found in the heart of love for others, rooted in a spiritual awareness of the value of all life. The history of war and tyranny has plagued humanity since the beginning of human history. Enduring sustainable peace has never been achieved, yet somehow we all yearn for it. WFWP's teachings assert that our human DNA is actually imprinted by the Creator to seek peace and harmony. So in a way, we cannot help but work towards a more peaceful and happy world. We are designed to live in peace, and we yearn for it. But the question is, how do we achieve it? WFWP teaches that only through the invisible spiritual power of unselfish love can we achieve our desperately desired goals for happiness. Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon and her late husband, Reverend Dr. Sam Myung Moon, my beloved parents-in-law, they founded WFWP in 1992 for the purpose of encouraging women to take leadership in this quest for sustainable peace. They encouraged all women to develop their feminine instincts for compassion and nurturing, rather than seeking to compete with men for domination or to blame men for our difficulties. As we take responsibility for our own lives, we also find true freedom, two sides of the same coin. Thus, we are encouraged to live by the understanding that peace begins with me, and then it spreads outwards into our families, communities, and the world. WFWP celebrates both women and men as necessary in the multiplication of new life and the education of future generations. Parents who set an example of harmony in the home make it possible for children to grow up in what we call the school of love, a healthy, nurturing family. Many great leaders credit their parents for their own conviction and achievements in adulthood. Over the past 30 years, WFWP has inspired women from every background and nationality with this inspiring vision. Today, WFWP offers education and development programs in 123 countries for the sake of building a better world. Because of the outbreak of COVID-19, people have been gathering in virtual settings like ours today. This ability to communicate through the internet might be described as the silver lining of the terrible pandemic. Yet even with sophisticated technology and an accompanying increase of information, there has not been a fundamental change in the way conflicts are resolved. A prime example is the war in Ukraine this year. How many women do you think supported that violence? I do not think there were many, if any. Violence and bloody war are not the way women naturally seek to resolve differences. As those who carry and nurture new life, women naturally seek non-violent resolution of disagreements. Recognizing the importance of women in preventing war, the United Nations Security Council adopted Resolution 1325 in the year 2000. It called for governments to utilize more women in negotiations and peacemaking activities. But still, we see war. Although important, it obviously takes much more than resolutions and laws to build a peaceful world. And that is why conferences such as this one are important, and why women must raise our voices within our various communities in whatever capacity we may have. WFWP has built an extensive foundation by serving, educating, and developing relationships beyond traditional boundaries that have kept us ignorant of one another. In gatherings such as this one today, we are given the opportunity to see that we have more commonalities than differences. Regardless of external differences, we all share that same imprint from our Creator, that same desire for peace, health, and happiness for ourselves and our families. Remembering that one person's example can influence change in a whole community or nation, we want to reiterate the empowering understanding that peace begins with me. Once again, I am very pleased to be here, to partner with many great women and men in this serious sharing of minds and hearts. May we help each other chart a better course for a sustainable culture of peace. Thank you so much. 감사합니다.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Julia Moon. I think you touched elements that will come up in each of our three sessions. Thank you for really making this, really setting the tone, I think, for what we want to, not only what we want to discuss, but what outcomes we want to reach. Our next speaker, Her Excellency, Madam Olga Algayerova from Slovakia originally. She has been very important in actually preparing this event. She was with us in some of the earliest, in the first meeting that we had actually to brainstorm about this. And she is the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, one of the 5 regional commissions of the UN. Maybe not everyone on the call knows so much about this, Mrs. Algayerova, but it is to, I mean, I'm sure she will tell us more, but to promote economic cooperation and integration. And I was really moved when I was reading her bio, and when she described her work has been to build and nurture partnerships. She was former ambassador of Slovakia to the UN in Vienna, and that is when we first met. And she is also a friend of our NGO Committee on the Status of Women here in Geneva. Thank you so much for joining us, Madam Algayerova.
Thank you, dear Carolyn, for this kind introduction, and good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. It's indeed my great honor to participate in preparation and to participate and to join in the opening of this commemoration of the UN International Day of Peace, organized by the Women's Federation for World Peace Europe and Middle East, and in partnership with the International Association of First Ladies for Peace. Looking at our esteemed panel of women leaders, I'm very proud to join you in discussing how we, as women leaders, can collectively contribute and drive action to tackle the multifaceted challenges we all face, unfortunately, today in establishing and sustaining peace. And what better motto for our deliberations than the theme of your event, our event. So it's no peace without women. I really liked it. So let me therefore start by recognizing the critical role of women leaders in achieving gender equality and empowerment of women as a driver for establishing peace and sustaining life in all domains. Gender equality is an influential factor for peace and stability, social cohesion, and sustainable economic development. Establishing this equal participation of women in all stages of the processes requires that women's needs, priorities, and concerns are identified and addressed through relevant policies and secured with resources that are timely allocated where needed. Without incorporating gender dimensions in policies and monitoring their implementation, reaching and sustaining peace is really not possible. Let us shortly go to the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 of the year 2000 that brought in a new approach to conflict prevention and peace building through setting up an important framework for policies and measures to promote gender inclusive and sustainable processes at national, regional, and global levels. Its adoption was a really major achievement and a result of unyielding work of women peace builders around the world. It established a normative framework for women's meaningful participation in decision-making, conflict resolution, conflict prevention, and peace building, as well as protection of women and girls' rights and prevention of sexual and gender-based violence in conflict-affected situations that we see, unfortunately, so frequently. The UN member states have committed to the implementation of the so-called Beijing Platform for Action, by far the most comprehensive global agenda for achieving gender equality and women's empowerment, which includes the theme of women in conflicts as one of the 12 areas of concern. So, of course, we face myriad threats to the Beijing commitments nowadays. Women are overburdened by unrecognized unpaid work in all areas. Gender inequalities have been exacerbated by still going on COVID-19 pandemic. The devastating impact of war destroys development efforts the world over. And as mentioned, such raging situation we have now in our region of the Economic Commission for Europe. And I can only join the Secretary General of the United Nations and world leaders in reiterating, and now I'm going to quote, "The war in Ukraine must stop now. The sooner peace is established in line with the UN Charter and international law, the better for the people of Ukraine, of Russia, and the world. The conflict has taken thousands of lives, caused untold destruction, displaced millions, and resulted in unacceptable violations of human rights, including women's rights. And lastly, the protection of civilians must be priority number one. Parties are obliged under international humanitarian law to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure. So attacks on healthcare also must stop. Again, there is no peace without women, indeed. All the more, as in war times, women and girls suffer exponentially. Women and girls are at particular risk in the conflict zones where they face an increased risk of sexual and gender-based violence, especially those who have been forced to flee. And we see that today. A war is always also about the child protection and child rights crisis. And ladies and gentlemen, any war or conflict impacts the entire life cycle of women and girls, from disrupting education to early forced marriage, sexual and gender-based violence, lack of livelihoods or food insecurity, lack of access to shelter, sanitation and dignity, and all that, it sets us back decades. So violations of and threats to girls' and women's rights call for protection and advancement of the Beijing Platform for Action and Prior Commitments, International Conference on Population Development, ICPD, and Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, so-called CEDAW, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, to name just some key frameworks. Transformation requires addressing the structural and macro issues that perpetuate inequalities, discrimination, and exclusion. In the regional review meetings of the Beijing Platform for Action, which are hosted by the UNEC every 5 years, our member states report on progress and challenges in achieving gender equality and empowerment of women, including in the domain of women in conflict. In our most recent meeting, we concluded that despite progress in achieving gender equality in all areas compared to other regions, the current pace of change is too slow. Along efforts to increase women's participation in economy, the meeting emphasized the implementation of Security Council Resolution 1325 as crucial to address gender-based violence in conflict situations and to involve women actively in peace processes. There is indeed a need to develop and implement comprehensive, well-funded strategies to accelerate change. And we call for actions by all stakeholders to redouble their efforts at the national, regional, as well as international level. We have also another format back in 2022, this year, 2022 Regional Forum for Sustainable Development, a key platform for policy debate, exchange of good practices and peer learning on the implementation of the SDGs in the region, a series of discussions at events and at the SDG 5, namely, roundtable, address the critical role of women leaders in peace and development. In our UNEC region, the social economic situation is very diverse. The region includes countries with conflicts and post-conflict situation, as well as countries with increased uncertainties and turmoil due to political crisis. And so this table is so important, sharing lessons learned, searching for approach to sustain peace through the participation of the whole society, women and men, is so much needed. In our work, I'm concluding already, we are working closely with partners such as UN Women, UNDP, OECD, OEC, and other international organizations, along with civil society and academia, to ensure that women's needs, interests, voices, and leadership are fully built into the international response through decisive actions with women as well as men from and beyond our region. I would like to assure that UNEC will continue to strengthen our partnership to empower women in all areas of work, thus contributing to sustainable development in the region. Just very last one, I look forward to inspiring discussions and strong action to make good on the promise that the International Day of Peace stands for today and every day the world over, and that the women's call for peace is heard. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Algayerova, for your words, for your wisdom. I know from experience also that the work of UNECE, I don't know if everyone on the call knows this, but the UNECE stretches from America to the far end of Russia. So it's a vast, I don't know how many nations it is actually, but vast. And how many nations in UNECE?
56.
56, yes. And we have worked, I mean, you mentioned the different institutions you work with, but I know also for a fact how hard you try to work with civil society. We were all, so many of us, NGOs were engaged in the Beijing plus 20 efforts, plus 25 efforts, and also soon coming up again, we're working towards Beijing plus 30, and how also you are opening the way for NGOs related to the Sustainable Development Goals and holding meetings with us. And one of my most recent experiences, which I find was so great, is the Aarhus Convention, where you have provided a way and not only openings, but also knowledge and tools, ways that NGOs and civil society can engage on environmental issues with their governments. So I just completed your speech, actually. I just added a few more points. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for your words and taking time for us. Our next speaker today is Miss Adriana Quinones. She is the director of UN Women Office in Geneva. She has more than 20 years of experience leading efforts in the area of gender equality, elimination of gender-based violence in Latin America and in other continents, access to justice, women's economic empowerment, Asia also. She is currently a very active head of the Geneva office. We met in the Human Rights Council, and she is everywhere. I see that she is working so hard, how important that is. And I think that's something that women are often doing very well, is when we see something is important, we really invest our full heart and full effort. And so I'm so happy to welcome you to this meeting today. We look forward to your presentation, Adriana.
Thank you.
Actually, maybe we wanted to play the video first, right?
Oh, great.
Yeah, video. Okay, could we play the video? UN Women video. Is that ready? I think so, huh?
Comme vous le savez, la plupart du temps, quand on parle de la contribution des femmes dans le processus de paix dans notre pays, on fait toujours allusion à la sensibilisation. Or, en réalité, le rôle de la femme doit aller au-delà de la sensibilisation. Les femmes ont le potentiel nécessaire pour s'engager dans la facilitation, pour s'engager dans les négociations, pour s'engager dans les plaidoyers, même au niveau politique.
We have seen through the high revitalization forum process that the moment women came together with one voice, they have been very powerful in terms of really moving the different positions.
On veut conscientiser les femmes. Vous voyez, il y a des femmes valables. À l'Assemblée nationale, les femmes ne sont pas du tout représentées au poste ministériel. Vous êtes sans ignorer que dans ce pays, il y a des femmes qui peuvent faire l'affaire.
Imaginez-vous un monde où la femme est autonome. Autonomiser la femme, c'est autonomiser l'humanité.
Remarkable film, really remarkable. Adriana, to you.
Thank you very much. How wonderful to be here today with all of you. I want to begin by thanking the Women's Federation for World Peace International and International Ladies for Peace for the invitation to this event. I want to praise your advocacy work and recognizing women's contributions to peace processes. These are essential to build peaceful society. I'm very pleased to be sharing this conversation with all of you today on the occasion of the upcoming International Day of Peace. We live days of complex and multiple crises: food insecurity, climate change, international and national conflicts, while the shadow of the COVID-19 pandemic and its consequences are still among us. Precisely, the pandemic has also had an impact on both international peace and security. A year later, after the pandemic was declared, 100 million people experienced food insecurity due to conflicts. And by the end of 2020, the number of people forcibly displaced because of conflict, persecution, violence, humanitarian crisis, and human rights violation has grown to 82.4 million, more than twice the level of 10 years earlier. It has been 22 years since the Security Council approved the resolution, our resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security, which established the Women, Peace, and Security Agenda. This agenda aims at increasing the participation of women in decision-making and peace building, ensure the protection that women and girls in conflict-affected countries, the prevention of sexual and gender-based violence, and the implementation of gender-sensitive relief and recovery measures. Just 22 years ago, we were able to achieve these landmark resolutions where we are recognizing for the first time that sexual violence cannot be tolerated, that violations to international humanitarian law have everything to do with women's human rights, and that the peace prospects have a direct relationship to how women are treated in conflict, in peace processes, and that's going to determine the future of these processes. Having been born in Colombia, I have always followed this topic, and to me it was shocking when I went to red zones to teach international humanitarian law that women and girls did not know any of their rights, did not know how to protect themselves from armed actors, and it has become more and more known and claimed. So now we have a peace process that included for the first time a strong participation of women and girls, a strong agenda for rebuilding the country, putting women at the center. So we know that this agenda is an agenda that produces results, that makes peace sustainable, and that allows countries to build more resilience to all the threats that we have. We had a report of the Secretary General on this agenda, and there are several threats to implementation that I would like to share with you today to see how we can unite forces, as Carolyn said in introductory remarks. How can we come together to really achieve this agenda? The Women, Peace, Security agenda needs funding, and military spending should be reduced. Let's think about investing in gender equality and the high impact and positive return on peace dividends. Women need more support to participate in decision-making of peace and security processes, as well as defense and security sector expenditures. In 2021, more than 80% of local civil society organizations working on the front lines of crisis reported to be on the brink of disappearance because of lack of funding. Women's equal participation in peace and security is a crucial goal of Resolution 1325, as well as women's participation in decision-making processes. So what can we do? Demand quotas in politics and peace processes, inclusive selection measures, independent delegations of women representatives, political commitments by member states for processes that they support, and investment in data collection, gender analysis, and monitoring of results across all peace efforts. UN Women has been working diligently on making sure that this reality is a lived reality for all the women and girls in conflict-affected areas. We are in Colombia, in Syria, in Libya, in Afghanistan, in Kosovo, in Guatemala, in Bangladesh, in DRC. All these processes take a long time. Only after 20 years of struggle by indigenous women and the women's movement, they were able to achieve a landmark sentence in Guatemala, the Sepur-Zarco sentence, which has 18 measures of reparations for sexual violence in conflict committed by military actors that are now in jail. It has taken so long, but when you see a sentence like this, the position of women and girls is completely shifted. It's transformed. From the victims, they are now the leaders at the community level. One of them spoke to the Security Council in 2019, being monolingual, being not having a bank account. She got, because of her efforts, one of the leaders of this movement, a visa for 10 years to come to the United States and speak to the Security Council on the impact of these resolutions of access to justice. And this is just one of the examples that I can share with you because I had the privilege of accompanying women and girls in this fight. And this is only one case, but we are working on many cases, on many delegations, on how is it that we can include women in a substantive way. And more we see that coming together, that having a common knowledge of what tools we have, we are promoting together better resolutions at the Human Rights Council. And so my invitation would be to join us in following on what we have achieved, on sustaining the gains, and on working together so that there is no rollback of women's human rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adriana Quinones. How important, I think all of us, who are speaking in public, who are doing advocacy, we're regularly looking to UN Women's research and statistics, which are so invaluable really for our work. And we're also so happy to hear of the different ways that we can maybe work with you. And I think we have to explore this more also locally, how we have we all have chapters throughout the world, especially in my committee of the NGO status of women in Geneva. So I think we really have to improve that partnership for the benefit of both sides, of all sides. So thank you so much, Adriana Quinones. We will now close our opening session, our sort of longer introductory session, which I think was very meaningful. And we will go into our first panel discussion. And I'd like